What is up, you guys? It is me, RC2001 Studios here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Bandai Movie Monster Series Shin Godzilla figure, or Shin Gojira, whatever you want to call it. So real quick, before we get on to paint job, detail, articulation, things like that, I'm going to show the tag first since I got this figure with the tag. So here's the tag. On the front, you basically have the Shin Godzilla Resurgence poster. And yeah, honestly, I like this tag. It's a pretty nice looking tag, although, it's just the movie poster. I still prefer this over the promotional Godzilla 2014 art that we got from the Godzilla 2014 Bandai figure. And yeah, I just really love this movie poster. I really do. Shows a picture of the movie poster. It looks really nice. Pretty cool. I think that says Godzilla Resurgence. Not sure. You have the Godzilla 2016 stamp. Says Godzilla 2016, Gojira, really nice looking tag. Inside you have a bunch of calling information, things like that. I'm not sure if you have stats on this figure, but yeah, pretty cool. Really like how it shows the silhouetted Godzilla, red and white, really nicely there. Got your choking hazard stuff. And on the back you have the Godzilla 2016 dorsal fins, and it says Movie Monster Series. So yeah, like I said, really nice looking tag. I like this tag way better than the 2014 Bandai Godzilla figures that we got, when the 2014 movie came out. And yeah, pretty cool looking tag. So that's the tag. Now we're gonna get on to articulation on this figure. So yeah, now let's move on to articulation. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about articulation. So when it comes to articulation, this figure isn't going to be superposable as the SH Monster Arts. It still has, your, standard Bandai articulation, but it's still pretty good for the most part. So on the arms, those could move 360, each of them. They move pretty nicely. The legs cannot also move 360 as well. You do have to move the arms a bit, if you want to rotate the legs, but those still move nicely. And yeah, and I really like the legs, and what I mean is that they don't get interfered by the tail. And yeah, pretty good articulation on this figure. Although it's just 4 points, it's still pretty good. He has a glue seal on the tail and on the end of the tail. However, I really wouldn't recommend breaking it, because I haven't really seen anyone on YouTube break the actual glue seals to make sure, that it's safe to do so without actually damaging the figure. But still, like I said, the articulation, it's standard, but it's what you should expect. And yeah, so now we're gonna get on to paint job. Alright, so now we're gonna be talking about paint job on this figure. So this figure, when it comes to paint job, doesn't have much to him. He does have some red paint, of course, like on the chest, but when there is paint, it's not always the cleanest paint job. And what I mean is that, like, sometimes the paint does get a bit messy and it goes on other places. For example, the chest on this figure, he has a kind of reddish orange color. However, when you look actually on the figure, you could see that there's some parts on the figure where the red kind of paint goes on some of the black parts. As you could see, it basically goes on the skin. Sometimes that's not always the problem. For example, on the neck right here, it seems like it's nicely done. There's no red fading on to the skin and stuff, but on the chest, that's kind of where the paint job lacks. And yeah, it's a decent paint job. You could see that they at least kind of try to keep all the red where it needs to be, but sometimes it's not applied on there really well. The teeth on this figure are a kind of tannish color, which they look pretty good. They're nicely painted on there. There's no paint bleed, no messy paint work. It looks nice. The eyes on this figure are really nice. Although they're not accurate, I still like them. I just think it makes the figure look a bit more stylized in that sense, but still, it looks really nice. He does have spray painted toes, or should I say toenails. Those are actually nicely spray painted on there. Yeah, there is a bit of this white color going on the toe pads, or on the actual toes, like below the nail, but still it looks nicely done. And yeah, he also has orange for the dorsal fins. And one thing I really gotta say about this figure is all the paint job on the dorsal fins is actually really nice. All the orange is on there. It doesn't really kind of go on other parts of the figures. For example, it's not it's nicely put there, you know what I mean? Like it's not fading off to on the side of the figure or anything. all the spray painted parts of this figure are actually nicely on there. And I really like how there's kind of this fading effect going on with each of the dorsal fins. It makes it look really nice. And yeah, so the dorsal fins, the paint job on here is actually really good. It's not messy, and it just overall looks really impressive. The paint on the tail, it's kind of like the chest where it's on there, but it's not that good applied on there. It's kind of messy in some areas, but in some areas it's decent. So yeah, when it comes to paint job on this figure, there's not too much paint, but I mean, the cool thing about this figure is you could at least customize and, you know, do paint this figure however you want, if you want, you know, that option. So yeah guys, paint job on this figure, it's decent, but it's not nothing to totally ruin the figure. So yeah, now let's move on to sculpt and detail. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about sculpt and detail on this figure. So one thing that I really like about this figure is how accurate it is. It's very faithful to the Shin Godzilla design. I mean, just overall, the sculpt on this figure is really nicely done, especially the head sculpt. I really love the body mold, or I should say body sculpt on this figure. It's really nicely done. Definitely looks like the Shin Godzilla design, as well as the tail. I really just like how they made the tail long. And yeah, all the sculpting that is done on this figure is really good. For example, the sculpting of the actual dorsal fins are really nicely done. I kind of like how they have that 1954 look, but also kind of have that you know, unique little interpretation as well. It looks good. All the sculpting of the kind of details on this figure is really nice. It's not as textured, but it's you know, this is an overall kind of different design of Godzilla that we've never really seen before. And this figure definitely captures that. You know, it's basically, it captures all the things that we wouldn't usually expect. Like, for example, this figure has a lot of wrinkles. And yeah, I mean, that's something that we don't really typically see on a Godzilla suit. But this is just a really nice looking figure when it comes to sculpt. The head sculpt as well is really nicely done. I just really love the head. It's probably really nice. I definitely like looking at this figure from the kind of front view. I mean, he looks good from the side view and stuff, but I mean, just when you look at him, you know, straight on, he just looks the most accurate in my opinion. But yeah, you know, that's the one thing I really like about this figure is the overall just sculpting. You know, even the legs are really nicely done. Those are very movie accurate as well. You know, as we all know, Godzilla has very big kind of thunder thighs in the movie, and yeah, this figure is definitely way superior than the movie monster series 2014 Godzilla that they came out that they made, you know, in 2014. That figure, although it had a way superior paint job than this figure, the actual sculpting done on this figure is way better, because it's just a lot, it's more faithful. It's a lot like the actual design, while the 2014 figure just although it was a nice attempt, I feel like the head sculpt was really not that good. And you know, like I said, this figure isn't really like the older figures where the sculpt, where the paint job and stuff is really good. Although this figure has a lacking paint job, it's something that's very minor in my opinion. And this is just an overall still good figure, because the sculpt and detail on this figure is what actually saves the figure and actually makes it a good Shin Godzilla option. So yeah, the sculpt on this figure is still pretty good. It's probably one of the pros of this figure. So now we're gonna get on to details. So the detail on this figure is a lot of kind of wrinkles and stuff, something like I've said that we've never really seen on other Godzillas. On the top of the head you have a lot of kind of skin texturing going on. It's very kind of bumpy texturing, looks very nice. You can see the tongue, that looks pretty cool. I really like the neck. You have all these kind of like nice texturing going on. It looks very kind of you know, it looks nice. It's nicely sculpted on there and stuff. The other body parts, it's very kind of lumpy and bumpy. Looks really nicely done. He has a lot of nice kind of skin folds on this figure. It's really cool. He's got a lot of nice wrinkles and stuff. And I really like the legs. They kind of remind me of like elephant skin. If you've ever seen, like, you know, an elephant or something, kind of looks like that. Looks really nice. Really love this kind of bumps that he has on the top of the thighs here. Really nice, you know, wrinkles, skin folds, skin flaps, things like that. And yeah, overall just really nice detailing. on this figure. I really as well like the tail. He's got a lot of these more nice skin folds. But I don't know, not only that, I just love the top of the tail, and I just love how it kind of follows this pattern, and it actually kind of fades off into the tail. And yeah, the tail is also one of the best parts of this figure. It's just so detailed. It's got a lot of nice texturing to it, and although I kind of wish the paint job was a bit better on the tail, it's still really nice when it comes to sculpt. And you know, it's just overall really nice, and you could kind of see the face, which is one cool thing about this figure. And yeah, like I said, this is a still really, you know, movie accurate version of the Shin Godzilla design. Although the SH Monster Arts one is better, I mean, it's SH Monster Arts. We shouldn't really compare, you know, Bandai to an SH Monster Arts, but still, this is very movie accurate, and the sculpt and just overall, just the way this figure looks. Also, just one thing I wanted to point out is I really love the sculpting on the feet. I just love how they're kind of arched like that. You know, he's on his he's basically on his toes, and I just really like that. And they definitely captured the feet really well on this figure. It's nicely sculpted on there, and you know, they look nice. Probably one of the best parts of this figure. So yeah guys, sculpt and detail on this figure is pretty good. Now let's move on to my final thoughts and pricing. Alright, so overall you guys, I highly recommend this figure. It's still a good Shin Godzilla, you know, representation. The sculpting on this figure is really nice. I really love just the way this figure looks. You know, the body mold, the head sculpt is really nice. All the detailing's pretty cool. It's mostly, you know, skin folds and stuff, but it's really nice detailing. It's not as textured, but it's still really nice, nicely done. The paint job on this figure, when there is paint, for example, sometimes it could get messy, like on the chest and the tail, but you know, but this doesn't apply to all the paint on the figure. For example, the paint on the toenails are actually really nice and clean. The paint on the dorsal fins are nice and clean. You know, there's some areas on this figure where the paint job is a bit messy, but there's some areas also where the paint job is actually really good, and yeah, and really clean, as well as, you know, the paint job on the teeth and the eyes are actually really nicely applied on there well, and it's not messy at all whatsoever. And yeah, overall, I really recommend this figure. It's a nice Shin Godzilla figure. Is it worth $40? Not really, but you know, if you really want this figure, I'd go for it, cause you won't actually be that disappointed from this figure. This figure, you know, it's not as good as the older vinyls that Bandai has produced, but it's still a good figure for what it is. It's still, you know, way better than the Godzilla 2014 figures that we've gotten from Bandai, because those ones, although they have, you know, like I said, a superior paint job, just, you know, when it comes to sculpt, this figure is definitely better, and you could at least see some effort put onto this figure. And like I said, the paint job is decent, but where this figure is really good at and exceptional at is the sculpt and just the overall kind of screen accuracy that this figure has. He definitely looks like the Shin Godzilla's design. And yeah, so real quick before also I end this video, I'm gonna be talking about pricing. So where to get this figure. So I got mine on eBay for $39. Yeah, it's not a lot. It's not a good deal. Definitely you want to get this figure kind of under $30. But here's the thing. From what I've seen so far, you basically have two options with this figure. You could either A, go on eBay and get this figure, you know, in the United States. Because here's the thing. This figure, from what I've seen on Amazon, is usually being imported from Japan. And if you don't know, when you order something from Japan, it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks to actually get this to actually get something. But the only reason why this figure is a bit more expensive on eBay is because most of the sellers, from what I've seen, are actually in the United States. So if you're a patient person, I'd recommend going on Amazon, because there they have this figure for like $20. But if you want to get this figure quicker and, you know, things like that, then I'd recommend getting this figure on eBay, because you'll definitely get it quicker than you would in from the listings in Japan. So yeah guys, hope you guys enjoyed this figure review. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.